MS Now's Julia Jester was at the Pentagon briefing this morning. Brett Bruen is a former U.S. diplomat who served as director of global engagement and is president of the Global Situation Room Incorporated. With me in studio, MS Now national security and intelligence analyst Chris O'Leary. He's senior vice president for global operations at the Soufan Group and was former director of hostage recovery for the U.S. government. He also took part in the evacuation of Afghanistan in 2021. It is great to have all of you here. But Chris, let me start, since you've done this kind of work before. How do they get people out fast and safely?
So what should have happened was this should have been part of the initial planning, what's called a non-combatant evacuation operation, a NEO, which is synchronization between multiple government agencies, with the State Department and the Department of Defense taking the lead and planning for the logistics to have, lift available for every American that needs it to get out. That clearly wasn't done, and even the president himself, when he was with his German counterpart yesterday, said he was somewhat surprised about the regional effects, the response from Iran, and what's been set up has been haphazard, and I think symptomatic of what we see more broadly with this war. There's no two people telling you the same thing. And what you've done, what MS Now has done is, calling this hotline and demonstrating the fact that it's not giving people the comfort or direction that they need to get out of this crisis. And the threat is not abating. Clearly, the attack from Turkey or at Turkey is demonstrative of the fact that we're going to continue to see effects from the Iranian regime, which sees this as an existential threat.
So, Brett, I want to remind people of that message that the State Department was delivering as recently as 5 o'clock Eastern time yesterday afternoon. Here it is.
Please do not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation at this time. There are currently no United States evacuation points.
Well, as we noted, that line is manned now, but callers are being told to sign up online for alerts, to wait for the government to get back to them, no timeline at all. To Chris's point, could this have been better planned? Could there have been warnings? Could there have been something ready to go? And let me just ask you a final question, which is about nothing against contractors. Contractors serve an important role, but it almost sounds like they were just reading from a sheet. It's not like they're people who are experienced in the region and can provide answers.
Yeah, and Chris, to that point, the last thing that you want in this kind of dangerous situation is confusion, contradictory information. And unfortunately, that is what we have been getting over the last several days. We are now in the 5th day of this war, and Americans are just starting to get an inkling of how they or their relatives and friends and families could get out. And to the point earlier, yes, if Trump knew that he was going to launch this operation, one, you want to send as direct a message as you can to Americans. Get out of the region, avoid travel there. So you're reducing the number of people that you eventually have to evacuate in that non-combatant evacuation, the NEO that was mentioned before. But then on top of that, you have got to ensure that you're reassuring Americans so that they understand what the plan is. And I think what we have seen from the Trump administration are the costs of all of those cuts last year to the State Department, to the lack of leadership, to the departure of so many State Department experts in this kind of situation. And so they're trying to recreate the arc as the floodwaters are coming over the top of the situation.
I want to pick up on that because there is a question about how many people are actually on the ground overseas to help. On Tuesday, the U.S. said it was recalling diplomatic staff from Pakistan, Cyprus, Oman, Saudi Arabia, 2 of those countries on that original list of 14. And we should note, of those 14 countries where people were told to evacuate, 7 of them, along with Iran, have no U.S. ambassador. How does that complicate things?
Yeah, so what you're going to have in these kind of situations, I've worked on evacuations in these war situations, is you will deploy everyone at the embassy, every U.S. official, no matter if you're an IT specialist, if you're diplomatic security, if you're a public affairs officer, you will be out there helping to coordinate Americans. And so you need as many people as possible. But Chris, again, this is an illustration of what was done wrong here. This is going to be a case study for the State Department going forward on how not to handle these kind of emergency situations, because you don't have enough of the right people. You're now trying to get both official Americans, American citizens out in the midst of very dangerous conditions. And we didn't have to subject our people to these risks. We know how to do this. We have done it time and time again. And somehow I think the Trump team just, forgot to look up, this stuff before they launched the attack.
I want to bring in Ines de la Cuetara, who is live in Jerusalem for us. Ines, I understand you just had to take shelter because of an alert. I wonder, can you tell us what happened and what you're hearing from people where you are?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, so sirens going off again here in Jerusalem. So we are now down in the hotel shelter. I'll let you take a look here. People clearly waiting it out. This is the sixth time by our count that sirens have gone off in the different places that we've been in. We were in Tel Aviv earlier today, now in Jerusalem. So I will say there is a sense that the amount of sirens going off has gone down when you compare, the amount of sirens going off now compared to the first couple of days of the war. But there is clearly very much still an ongoing threat. Just today, there was at one point incoming fire from both Iran and Hezbollah at the same time. The number of casualties rising across the region, of course, so over 1,000 people killed in Iran. That's according to Iranian officials, 52 in Lebanon. Here in Israel, we are at 13 killed so far, and those 6 American service members also who were killed. The sentiment here in Israel, people we've been talking to are very much on board with the operation in Iran. One man telling me, they've been living with this constant threat of attacks for years now, and so they want Israel and the U.S. to finish the job. They are bracing for much worse. There is hope that the U.S. and Israel are quickly taking out the Iranian ballistic missile capabilities, and we heard defense, Pentagon officials earlier today talking about how the number of ballistic missiles fired was down 86%. The hope is that they're going to keep doing that, but they are also at the same time bracing for the worst. We've been visiting underground hospitals. Earlier today, we were at a national dispatch center where they kind of coordinate all the emergency response, and officials there telling us they are preparing for mass casualty events.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Ines. So, Chris, that brings me back to, and I don't know if any of the folks who are there with her are people who are trying to get out of country. Having said that, is there a way for the U.S. government now, knowing that the planning doesn't look like it was what it should have been, knowing that the staffing on the ground is not what might be ideal, can they get ahead of it now?
They can catch up, and certainly General Kane touched on it this morning, comparing and contrasting him, a career professional. He's giving people some comfort with his competency and his legitimacy compared to the former Fox weekend host and Saturday Night Live content contributor who's playing Secretary of War right now. But DOD does these things in partnership, and they will surge the resources. General Kane talked about Space A, which are flights that are coming in and bringing materials and putting people on those military flights on the way out. Contract air, for sure. But then the U.S. military in both the Mediterranean and in the Gulf region can start using helicopters to come in and get people out of hard-to-reach areas and bring them back onto the ship and transport them somewhere else. The U.S. military has done this successfully for years. And not all of them are as ugly as the end of Afghanistan. So the capability is there as long as we start relying on career professionals like General Kane and others. And frankly, these are the effects of decimating those professionals out of the U.S. government. Now you have unqualified, unserious people running key components of it, including protecting the homeland. Let's not forget, Kristi Noem and Kesh Patel are in charge of protecting the homeland from the threat of the Iranians here.
So, Julia, Secretary Hegseth said the U.S. isn't backing off. And as of today, at least, Iran isn't either, obviously. So what's the latest you learned?
Well, Chris, I was at the rare Pentagon briefing this morning where we were able to hear from Secretary Hegseth and Chairman Kane. And Hegseth said that the U.S. is going to take all the time it needs to accomplish this mission, noting that we're 4 days in. And according to Hegseth, within about a week, the U.S. and Israel will have complete control of Iranian airspace, which will allow the U.S. to strike deeper into Iran. So really touting the accomplishment there of the Sky campaign and noting that Iran's barrages of ballistic missiles and drones has drastically decreased in recent hours and the past 24 hours alone. So Hegseth touting that the Iranian Air Force is decimated, and he said the Iranian Navy is no more. He cited a couple of examples of that, the first being that for the first time since World War II, the U.S. used a torpedo to sink an Iranian ship in the Indian Ocean. And Hegseth took a lighter tone when he referenced a ship sunk overnight, named after Qasem Soleimani, the commander who President Trump assassinated in his first term, saying that Trump got the last laugh there and got to sink him twice, essentially. And that wasn't the only time Hegseth struck sort of a glib tone. I want you to take a listen to what he said, criticizing coverage of this military operation, particularly with regard to the 6 American soldiers' lives that were lost. Here's what he said.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality.
Now, the front page news he's referring to are the 6 lives lost in Kuwait as the result of an Iranian drone strike. And that's an area that the U.S. military has been really struggling with. It's really hard to intercept those drones. And another topic that came up at today's briefing that officials were pressed on were the concerns over shortage of U.S. munitions. And Hegseth and Kaine both dismissed those concerns. Hegseth said that the arsenal is extremely strong, and Kaine said that they have enough munitions to carry out this mission, which, as of right now, does not have a set timeline, Chris.